This is Joe Peters from MomFit with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the H.E.R Network on Single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Single TV app in the respective app stores in iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Single TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV Stick, Roku, and Roku Stick in all smart TVs since 2016. And very soon we are also going to be on Apple in the Apple podcast. So today I'm very excited to be talking about a very important topic. Yes, this is something that is so important for all of us moms. So it doesn't matter if you are a mom to be right now, if you are in the first 18 months, or if your child's a little older. I think that we all struggle with balancing when the kids come, how we can keep a connection and keep that intimacy with our partners. Yeah. I think that we all are being there. So that is why Kim is here. Kim actually is an expert helping moms to bring the romance and the spark back in their relationships, like it was when they first started dating. Her clients are usually moms who describe their current relationship with their partners as we are just co parenting and doing roommate agreements. We are just friends sharing a house, but they really are looking forward to get that spark that they had at the beginning. Maybe even get him to bring them back flowers. She had a background in lettering, Latin American history, and Spanish, and she also enjoys working with women in cross-cultural relationships or with those who are using Spanish as a tool to connect with family and community members. So, Kim, thank you so much for coming. I'm super excited to have you here. This is a very important topic. And I want to start with you telling us a little bit about your story and how you end deciding that this is something that you want to do for us as moms.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. And I can tell you part of this story starts with a cute Cuban boy. But anyway, that don't all stories start like that? Anyway, um, I always had an interest in languages, and I think part of that is because I grew up in a very small place. I grew up in a small island in the Caribbean, right off the coast of Venezuela. So one of the things that was always fascinating to me was other cultures. And I learned pretty early on that one of the ways that I could interact with other cultures was through languages. And I had an aunt and some cousins who were living in France, and the only way that I could communicate with them was if I learned French. So as soon as I had the chance in school, I started learning my Spanish and my French. I got interested in Spanish because, as I said, there was this cute Cuban boy who didn't live too far away. And I thought, well, that's a good excuse. But, life moves on. Um, and as I grew up and grew out of that particular crush, um, I continued to enjoy exploring different cultures. And I was particularly fascinated by different Latin American countries. So that's what led me to my original career path. Now, in that process, one of the things I started doing was coaching people on language acquisition and Latin American cultural awareness. But because of how much emphasis I put on cultural awareness, I found that I had a lot of ladies who were coming to me who were interested in learning the language because their partners were from Spanish speaking cultures. And they always said things like, they want to help pass on the language to their children. They wanted to help their children preserve their cultural heritage. They wanted to understand their in laws better. But even deeper underneath that was that they wanted to kind of solidify the bond with their partner. And so this was all part of that process. And as we would go through our programs, one thing that became very evident was that what they were calling language barriers and culture barriers sometimes were just male female barriers. So we were doing this kind of unofficial relationship mentoring, and one day I just decided, you know what? This is my calling, because one of the things that's very important to me is helping families stay together in healthy, loving environments. So that's where I switched my focus, and I've been doing that ever since, helping women stay happy and healthy in their relationships.
I I love that, and it's so important because there is such a taboo, right? Because we as females and we as moms get this almost brainwashed that when your kids are here, they are the most important thing. And
Yes.
I still remember when I was in college, and I have a my husband, my marriage is a interracial, not interracial. Yeah, it can be interracial. My marriage is a mixed culture marriage because I'm from Colombia,
Mhm.
my husband is from the United States. So I agree, there is a lot of things that are
Mhm.
culture, that are language. But I remember when I was in college, remember how much there was criticized because a mom of one of my friends was very clear saying that if she has to choose between her kids and her husband, she will choose her husband, and that in her relationship the most important person was her husband. And there was, Colombia is a very matriarchal like culture, and everybody was so like shocked, and they judge her and criticize her. She's such a bad mom, how dare you to put your husband first. And that stayed in my brain for a long time. When I get married, I remember having the conversation with my husband and saying, now I get it, because yeah, your child is your child. And then I always tell him like, but you are the one that make possible the child. So if I keep you, we can have another
Exactly.
child. If I keep the child, I cannot have another one of you. So one of the things that I did in my own marriage was, even when I was pregnant, and I'm not being as good now that I have a toddler, but I'm still trying to go in, and is reinforcing that he as my partner is my first priority, and that is important that we go that. So I'm super interested in hearing
Mhm.
your tips and your wisdom. It's gonna start with the phrase that you choose. All my
Mhm.
guests pick a phrase that resonates for them, and I'm very interested on learning a little bit more about yours. Yours is, you have to act your way into feeling. So let's go start
Mhm.
with that one. It's a powerful one.
Okay, well, I'll give you a very specific example where I use that. And by the way, what you said just now about, your partner coming first, I do think that's very important. And one of the ways to kind of explain that to people even better is to explain to them, you are modeling a healthy relationship for your children. So, in very many ways, by creating that strong bond between you and your partner, that is for your child's best interest. So, it's not necessarily about, oh, my child is less important to me. Of course not. But that relationship is super important for them to see too. So, okay, one of the things I talk about a lot is partners being kind to each other. And one of the expressions of that is by paying each other compliments. So great, compliments. Now, here's the thing. Very often it's difficult to, depending on where the couple is at that point in time, it's difficult to think of the compliments. So this is where you start by doing. You make a list of the things that you like, admire, respect about them. Great. You pull from that list. Some couples are in a stage where, it's very hard for them to even think about those positive things. So this is where I say, ask your children, especially the younger ones, maybe the teenagers, not so much, but the younger ones tend to be very generous with their compliments of their parents. So again, here is your list that pull from. Great. Now, if you can tell your partner some of these things on a daily basis, great. If it's difficult to say, write it down, leave notes, send a text messages. And now this is where the act your way into feeling bit comes. There are some for some couples, they are in that stage where it's writing it isn't going to work, saying it isn't going to work. So this is where I say, tell your partner that compliment while they are sleeping. Now, obviously, at that point, that compliment isn't doing anything for the sleeping partner. It's for you. It's you taking the action. It's you acting your way into feeling it because you're giving yourself the practice of this positive action so that at some point, hopefully soon, when your partner is awake, you can actually tell them that. And I even remember once being very irritated with my husband, and it had been going on for a couple of days. And by the second night, he was asleep, and I bent over and I gave him a kiss. And I mean, he was totally knocked out. He didn't even know what happened. But I didn't do that for him. I did that to remind myself, regardless of what else was going on, this is somebody I love. This is somebody that I want to be with. And I had to, if the feelings weren't there, I had to start doing something to shift that sensation. So acting, because if we keep waiting until we feel to do something positive, what if that feeling never comes? So that's why it's very important to act our
Like,
way into feeling.
I will. We are going to get a little spicy, and I have that. This it's a little like air raid. I'm not going to go into details, but I agree with you. Like there was a time before I get pregnant, and then after I have my baby, we start doing it again, not as often, but we start noticing that with everything else in life, there was past a lot of time between the times that we were intimate with each other, that we have sex.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that is not right. So then I had a lot of criticisms on this one, but I started scheduling on my calendar. Like, I was like, this day we're going to have sex. This day we're going to have sex. This day we're going to have sex. And then people were like, that is so cold. You take all the romance away. And I was like, well, if I do it this way, we are going to have at least 10 opportunities to have the romance. If I don't do it like this, there will
Yeah.
be months that we will not have sex at all.
Exactly.
And it was that part of scheduling into feeling it because it was important for me. And I start noticing that if I leave it to when I feel it, it was not that I didn't feel it. It was that it was so easy to get busy with so many other things that the days become weeks and the weeks become months, and then things
Exactly.
go. So that was something that I did for a long time, and it worked really good. And
Mhm.
then going into the moms, then that we will be probably a conversation for another show. But then I went another level, and then talk with my husband and say, hey, we have these things when we are having sex, and then every time that we have sex, you have an orgasm. Starting today, every time that we have sex, I have an orgasm too. So that is your job. Your job is doing that. Period.
Exactly.
So we all can enjoy and do
Perfect.
that. So I love that you are saying into the other thing that I love about what you are saying is we are not doing it for them initially. We are
Yeah.
doing it for us to remember and to get used to it, back to that concept of this is a person that, like, the reality is we are not living in the 20s and the 800 century anymore. So
Oh.
probably because I know that there's still some countries that there is a forced marriage, but
Mhm.
90% of us married the person that we married because we were completely in love with them, because we thought that they were the most amazing person in the world. So I love how you said, like, doing this even when they are asleep help us to remember that. Kim,
Mhm.
I know that you have 5 magical tips for what habits can be developed in for a mom that can strengthen the relationship with their partner. And this is very important, mamas, and I want you to write this down from Kim, because especially if you are pregnant or
Mhm.
if you are in the first 18-24 months of your baby, you are also exhausted. You are also probably sleep deprived. So you are like, I don't have energy to do much more. So these 5 tips that Kim is going to share are going to be simple things that you can do to actually start nurturing that amazing relationship that you have with the dad of your child or
Mhm.
the mom of your child.
Mhm. So the first one really was around that. paying compliments. And I'll tell you why those compliments are also important. So, studies have shown that in very successful relationships, for every one negative interaction the couple has, they have five positive interactions. Now, that I remember the first time I read that, and I was like, for some reason, I read it the other way around. I'm like, okay, so I have to have at least one positive for every five negatives. Like, no, 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 read that again. So imagine that. You have to come five times better than the one bad time. So compliments is one of those places where you can build up those five to combat the one negative. And you see, when we compliment each other, what we're doing is we're focusing on the positive, because it's so easy to get sucked into the negative things, because we're human, and we do sometimes focus more on negative things than on positive things. So complimenting our partners really helps us to stay in that positive space. And that's why as well, you know now, here's another even crazier number. Still with the five, you should be trying to compliment your partner five times a day. I will admit, I am not at five. Maybe I'm at three. And this is where, again, it helps. You might tell them one to their face, and then you send the notes or you send the texts. And even if it's like a flirty text, it doesn't have to be all serious and lovey dovey. You can Google, fun and flirty text to send my partner. It's full of them, and you can get them in Spanish and English. So, all right. So that's one of those tips, that idea of paying compliments and staying positive. So the next one is saying thank you, and saying thank you often. And again, it comes back to that staying in the positive cycle, because what happens is that we sometimes get complacent. And now complacency is the number one romance killer in a relationship. We take it for granted. This person is there, they know us, they know we love them, they know we appreciate them. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with saying it sometimes, in the little things and in the big ones. So it also helps your partner. Now, you think about it. When someone tells you thank you, you feel good about what you've done. You feel seen, you feel appreciated.
And
That's what you.
one thing that I want to tell is that because we have diversity and inclusion, so we have some couples that are female female. So and that applies to you too. And if your couple is male female, one of the things that is very important is understand how the male brain works, because they are designed genetically to provide for you, to save. So their instant recognition is super important for them,
Yep.
and that is how they feel that they are doing good, because they are supposed to be providing, to take the trash down, to do some of
Mhm.
those active things. And when they don't have that positive recognition immediately, that is start making them feel less and less and less. I actually was saying that one of the, and by all means, moms, I'm not excusing cheating, because that is never okay. But I remember hearing a male, no surprise, sharing about how if the wife stopped getting thank yous and start being more complacent, and getting used to it, to everything that the husband does, and then the husband start going to the hair salon, and the person that trimmed his hair start giggling at his jokes, and start saying thank you when he moved the chair. Then he start, sometimes it's not even that they literally like them, is that they are getting feel their love tank in a way that is not there. Again, I'm not excusing infidelity at that point. What the right person should go is go back home and say, we need help. Let's gonna figure out. But it's important that we as females, especially if we have a male as a partner, to understand how important it is for them to hear that thank you from a reptile brain perspective, from how their brain works, and how
Mhm.
at that point, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that at that point they are a lot like toddlers, like little children, as more you tell them thank you, as more things they're going to do for you, because then as soon as you say thank you for something that they did, their testosterone is going up, their endorphins are going up, and they want to do more for you.
No, that's absolutely, absolutely correct. And that's the thing with the thank you. It's actually more effective. It's more effective when women say it to men as opposed to men saying it to women. I'm not saying that women don't appreciate it. Of course we do, but it does something extra on that side for 100%. It, and I always say too, it might sound bad, but the reality is the more you reward behavior that you like, the more likely it's going to be repeated. So, saying thank you and paying the compliments gets those behaviors repeated. So, and okay. So the other thing is how you express thanks, because some people say, "Well, oh gosh, it's thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." Okay, but things like a kiss, a small one or a spicy one, depends. A hug, squeezing a hand or a foot, a moan of appreciation when you eat something that they've made for you or brought for you. It's showing appreciation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be verbal all the time, but just make sure you do it. So I love that.
And so far we have two: is one, compliments, then
Mhm.
say thank you often. And I love what Kim is saying thank you. You can say thank you in a lot of ways. It doesn't have to be verbal all the time. What is tip number 3?
Okay, so tip number 3, speak kindly to each other. Now, I know that as women, we are actually very attuned to a lot of nuances. We don't just listen to words, we listen to tone of voice, we watch body language, and we're very busy analyzing what's being said to us and how it's being said to us. Now, very often, though, we're not so analytical when we are speaking to somebody else. So, a couple things to pay attention to. How are you speaking to your partner? How are you speaking about your partner? Now, I'm not saying you have to force it. I'm not saying you have to pretend that everything is fantastic, even when it's not. I'm just saying be mindful of your tone. And I do it. I do it. I know there are ways I speak to my husband sometimes that if he were to speak to me that way, I would instantly be upset with him. And I don't always check myself. But it's important too, because the same way we don't want to be spoken to in an aggressive way, they don't either. And it's that idea. This is one of those places where that mutual respect is important. Are we being rude? Are we being unkind? If and we may have a reason for that, but then again, how is our message getting across? If it's important for the message to get across, then maybe we do need to check how we're saying it. Because again, we don't like it when they do it to us. So if we're trying to improve our relationship, we have to lead by example. You know?
And I love that. I will share something that happened today, actually, and it's so funny when you have a toddler, because and then we are doing also gentle parenting. That like our toddler is 18 months and not very often see us raising our voice or anything.
Mhm.
And I think that I hurt my husband's feelings a few weeks ago when I told him that he spent like an hour pooping. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, he go to the bathroom and spend like freaking 90 minutes pooping. So I think that I hurt his feelings because a couple of times he's being like, when I'm in the bathroom, he's like, "Oh, you are also taking a lot of time." So he's actually putting it back. So this morning he did it. I was in the toilet with the phone, and then he said something like that, And it triggered me so much, and I snapped at my husband. Like, I was super rude, loud, and my toddler was there. And my toddler reaction immediately caught me up, because my toddler was so surprised, or no, that he came to me and said like, no, no, and then put his hand, like he was so like, this is not how we
How
communicate in this
you?
house. And
Yeah.
as soon as I saw my toddler doing that, I immediately caught myself and like, I'm so sorry, we don't talk like that in this house. Mommy was in the red zone. Mommy was very triggered with daddy's passive aggressive comment. But again, it's important how what you were saying is, we are 200% focused on how they talk to us, but a lot of times we actually talk with a not very nice tone, with
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of passive aggressive. So I love that we are thinking on how I can talk kindly
Mm-hmm.
about this.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and I always say too that we're only human, and it's not as if this is how it's going to be every single time. Emotions get the better of us sometimes. It's just something to be mindful of. And especially if you're going into a particular conversation where you know your reaction generally is to get aggressive or to get angry or to get irritated, be mindful of that. Break your pattern. You may have to literally spin around in a circle. You may have to walk out of a room. You may just have to say, okay, I need a break. That's okay. That's okay. And you can come back to the discussion afterwards. I remember one day talking to my husband recently, and he was just everything he was saying. I was like, why is he being so negative today? He's not usually so negative. And he was just provoking and provoking. And I was about to flip myself around and tell him what I thought about his attitude. So instead, what I did was, and this is, I mean, and this is why I say turn around. I was there cutting the bread. I turned around in two circles. And then I turned to him and I said, have you taken your high blood pressure tablets today? And he actually hadn't. So it was like, he's like, oh, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Go take them. So, because otherwise, I would have just added to the fuel that was his irritation, and we would have just had one ridiculous argument over nothing important. So break your patterns. If you're seeing it happening, if you're seeing your anger escalating, pause. Find some way to pause it.
And I think that will be part of, like, maybe a little bit more of type tip five, but four. So tip
Mhm.
number one, to recap, tip number one: give compliments even if you are asleep. Even if you are asleep, no, even if they are asleep. Number
Seriously.
two, say thank you in different ways, but show appreciation. And this number two is very important if your partner is a male. If it's a
Mm,
female, it's still important. Number three, be kind and be aware of how you are using not only your words but also your tone and your body language when you are talking with your husband or your wife or your partner.
yeah.
What is tip number four, my dear?
Okay, so tip number 4, don't talk about your relationship with other people. So, okay, I get it. Oh, let me caveat this tip. This applies to a generally healthy relationship. If you are in an abusive relationship, please do talk to somebody who can help. Okay? But we're taking this point from a healthy perspective. Okay. Yes, you're going to need space to vent. I'm not trying to take that away from you, but how are you doing it? Now, let's remember, in a relationship, in a loving relationship, we are each other's safe space. Therefore, we are going to show each other sides of ourselves that nobody else gets to see. We get to be vulnerable in that space, and that's a good thing. But we also have to protect each other and protect each other's vulnerability. So, if we are taking things that happen in our safe space and talking about it with friends and family, That's a serious violation of trust. Now you might say, well, okay, I'm not talking about the things that we've discussed in private. I'm talking about, the fact that he never takes the garbage out and that irritates me. Okay, fine. But here's the thing, right? When the same way I said earlier that sometimes we focus on the negative, when you take something that's irritating you, let's say it's a level 3 issue, and you talk about it with your friends, and you talk about it, and they talk about it, and they bring their opinions and their perspectives, that thing that was a number 3 can get escalated to a number 9 in no time at all because you're just focused on it. Not just that. Are you giving the full context of your situation? Or are you just focusing on the one negative thing? Are you saying what maybe you might have done to have provoked a particular reaction? Or are you focused on his reaction or her reaction alone? On top of that, when we talk about our relationship with other people, we also, I don't think we should do that all, but what about the good things that they've done? You're still focusing on the negative thing. You're not talking about the good thing and the good things. And now you're painting a picture of your partner that may be negative. And your family and friends may want to protect you. And so now they're beginning to wonder, well, what's going on with him? What's going on with her? Why is she putting up with that? Because you're not giving them the full picture. You're not telling them about the good things that happen as well. And then you're giving other people a window into your life, into your personal private life. And how are you going to push them back out now? Because every time they see you, they're going to want an update on the situation. And it's none of their business.
I will tell you something that happened to you with one of my friends from high school, and it's so powerful and so agree with what you're saying. There was a boyfriend that was really bad with her, and she shared a lot of that, to the point that up to today I still hate that as that person. I still hate him. She forgive him. She now even discuss things with him, and I still cannot even see him because for me it was so bad that he hurt her, that
Mhm.
that it was just like no way. And the same happened with our friends or family. So sometimes when you share and try to vent like that, yeah, you are trying to vent, but you are making those people to start getting a different image of your partner, and then even start not liking your partner, and
Mhm.
actually start not being how do you say that, neutral about it.
Neutral, yeah,
Because the
exactly.
reality is, I always say this, every bill had two sizes. So if you're only showing this side, it's not going to be fair, because then they're going to stop being neutral. And like you were, I love how you were saying, they are going to start adding gasoline to your fire, and then your fire is going to start getting magnified. And because of how our brain work, we tend to have a negative bias to focus on the negative better. So if you have that little circle that you're like, oh, I'm gonna just bitch about my husband for 2 hours with my friend or with my mom, it's a
Mhm.
cycle that be very hard to break. So I love that one. So,
Yeah.
and then I love what you were saying about the healthy relationship, and that is, in that case, how do you recommend if we need to vent?
Mhm.
Like, what would be a healthy way to vent with a close friend or with a family member, to frame of, this is not my reality all the time, but I really need to talk with somebody about this? Or you recommend to not do it and just journal? What is your recommendation if, especially females, at one point really need to vent about something that they are upset about?
It's a combination of all of those things actually. Because one of the things too is, okay, generally our friends and family should be looking out for us, but sometimes their own perspectives may be a bit skewed, so the advice they give us may not be the best. So that's just something to kind of keep at the back of your mind, so that when your friends and family are giving you their advice, that you're taking it with a pinch of salt. You just, okay, I'll bear that in mind. So, okay, if you are talking to them, then yes, you have to kind of put the full context out, and then be honest with yourself. And that's helping you to be honest about what was your part of that conflict. That helps you. Um, and if you are talking about something negative that happened, also talk about something positive. So you're not painting a fully negative picture of your relationship. Um, Now, the other thing is, if you're not going the talking route, what you could try as well is exactly that, the journal about it. Or what I say sometimes is even better than journaling about it, write an email to yourself or write it on a piece of paper, sleep on it. The next day, if that issue is still bothering you, then we deal with it. Talk to your partner because he or she is the other person involved in this. Or you might wake up and realize this doesn't bother me so much anymore. Delete the email, rip up the piece of paper. That's why I say, you can put it in the journal, but if you love your journal and you don't want to rip a page out, maybe put it on a piece of paper so you don't have to worry about ripping a page out of your journal. But and the thing is, too, conflicts are healthy. You're two individual people. You're supposed to have differences of opinions. It's okay. It's just how you deal with it. And so, yeah.
I love that. And I love it because that is, and I was laughing when you say it because that is exactly the advice that if any of you moms are working moms or have business, that is one of the first things that anybody in HR will tell anybody in business is do not send emails, do not talk with a peer or with your boss when you had a heated head. And that is
Yeah.
exactly what HRs tell you. Write an email, leave it in draft, and then next
Right.
morning you read it. And then I love what you're saying. You can either be like, no, it's not a big deal, or you can be like, oh, I was being a little nasty. I want to still talk about it, but I'm gonna edit it and then
Um,
share it. So I love that one. So number one, compliments. Number two, thank yous. Number three, be kind and be careful about how you use not only your tone but your body language and your words. Number four, be very mindful on how you speak about your partner with your friends and family when you are frustrated. Now let's gonna do number five.
okay, number 5. Go to bed at the same time regularly. So, now this one, sometimes I get. Actually, just this morning, I was reading. I don't know if you know Scary Mommy, and there was this post about uh, the sex drought, and then there was all of these comments about, well, that's just how it is. You know, uh, we get to a point where we understand we're both just tired. I'm like, okay, 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 all valid. Everyone's opinion is valid. That's how you feel about it. That's okay. But there are some things we can do to improve it. Now, going to bed at the same time regularly is not just about sex. It's also about prioritizing your health. And it's also about getting that quality, quiet time together. Because here's what happens when you're getting ready for bed. You're not just getting ready for bed, you're kind of shedding all of the day's stress. You're taking off the masks. You are really just getting down to you and your partner in your quiet space. And I always say too, I'm not saying that you have to do everything together. It might be one person is scrolling on their phone, one person might be reading. It's just that time where you start to calm down, settle down, just get back to just being you, no other distractions. Okay, fine. Now there's the physical proximity. So you have the chance now for, feet brushing against each other, hands touching, bodies touching. That's all great. What we're doing here is we're creating that emotional connection. And so this is another thing. Connection is a word people use a lot. So this going to bed together gives you two types of connection: the physical connection and the emotional connection. For many women, that emotional connection is super important. And it's what helps us to feel like our relationship is on track. He understands us, he sees us, he values us. But for many men, and I'm not saying all, but for many men, the physical connection is where they feel everything is good, we're connected, we're healthy, we're happy. So it's important that you have the emotional connection and the physical connection. So, yes, going to bed together can create that space for the emotional, and it also increases the chance for sex, which is an important part of a romantic relationship. In fact, that's the thing that makes your romantic relationship different from all your other relationships. So we cannot underestimate the value of it in a healthy relationship. And so this is where we were talking when you were talking earlier about the scheduling. I'm like, yes, sometimes we are at that stage in our lives where we need to schedule. And I remember doing the same thing that you did. And it was exactly at that point after the first baby, by the second one, because we only had about a kind of less than 2 years between them. So it was at that point where it's like, I'm going crazy because I have two toddlers and I don't know what to do. So actually, yes, it became important to start setting aside in my mind Mondays, Wednesdays, whatever it was. But I had to make up my mind when I woke up that morning, this is what we're doing, and just stick to it.
And one point on that one, I love several things that you said. Like we tend to go to bed at the same time now with the baby not sleeping. That is being interrupted. But the other thing that we used to do and we're not doing now because of our schedules and things like that was we always take a shower together. Like
Yes.
before we got the baby, we when we both were working, that we all both had to work, wake up very early, we always take a shower together. When I start my own business, that I didn't have to wake up as early as him, then during the week he will take his shower first than me, but then during the weekends we always shower together. And I'm not saying that every person needs to do that, but it's the same concept of going to bed, because it's a time that you are doing that part of intimacy, of that physical connection, that emotional connection. Some of you are going to be like, the only time that I have for myself is the bath. I'm not going to share that with him. And that's fine. But it's just ideas on what
Ideal.
other things you can do to say, okay, we always do this together. We always do this. And then the part of the scheduling with sex, but also the other thing that I do, for example, and I didn't did it for a long time, and I restarted this year, is we schedule our day nights. Because the reality is, like, either if you're a working mom, you know this. If you are not a work, if you're a staying home working mom, you know this. Like,
Mhm.
every other important thing in your life, you have to agenda it. Can you imagine if you're like, oh, I'm gonna just take my children to the doctor um when I feel like it, when I think that is important, when I'm in the mood for it. Like, then, like, you don't do that. Oh, I'm not going to make the appointment for the dentist until I feel like it. You don't. You organize important things, you schedule them, and you
Mhm.
had a place in your calendar. Or like a school, oh, I'm not going to get and do the homework with my kid until I feel like it. No, you usually had a schedule and say, you go home from home, you eat lunch, and then you do your homework. So
Exactly.
why we are so resistant to apply the same concept that we use for work, for our family, for our children, into the relationship that we have with our partner, and then we feel comfortable scheduling time with them, for them.
Exactly. And precisely. And this idea that, oh, it should just feel good. You know what? The reality is meeting someone and falling in love, that feels good. Great and wonderful. But that feeling changes, life changes. So you have to do other things to keep that feeling there. And this is again, you can't wait until you feel it. You have to be doing things actively to create that environment. And, so even like The other thing I tell people as well, when I say go to bed regularly at the same time, if you can hit every night, fantastic. But the realities is, as you said, toddlers, babies, sometimes older family members, pets even. So it may not happen every night, but try, try to get 3 4 nights a week. If it doesn't happen one night, try the next one. When you wake up in the morning, set your bedtime and then work your day backwards, and that kind of reverse engineering thing. So like, 10 o'clock is my bedtime, and you make sure everything that has to get done for you to be in bed by 10 is happening. Talk to your partner about it. Two heads are better than one. Both of you can apply it, you know
Absolutely. So those are amazing tips. And we are going to squeeze a little bonus before we wrap up. And I probably need to get you back in my show because there is so much more that I want to talk with you. But before we wrap up, we're going to have a little bonus of what are some of your ideas to immediately start reigniting the romance in the relationship. So if a mom is feeling down, not loved, not
Mhm.
taking care, what are some of the ideas, like give me three or four that they can do this weekend to reignite that spark?
Okay, seriously, make that list of compliments and start using it. Go look up a list of flirty texts that you can send to your partner. Do it. Put on something nice. Put on something nice. Make yourself feel fun and feminine and flirty, because you are. So do it. Shave your legs if you have to. Just saying. And what's another one you can do? Um, just It's okay. Whatever happened before, that's all right. Today is a new day. Just commit to taking that step. Lead by example.
Good. Thank you so, so, so much, Kim. Now, as we start wrapping up, why you don't share with us what is one, if you could just send one message to all the moms and wives in the world that are right now struggling with their intimacy with their partners, what will be that one message for them? And then also please share with us how they can reach out to you, how they can connect with you if they want to keep learning from you.
Okay. The one thing I can tell you for sure, decide that you want to reconnect with your partner. Decide you want to recreate that intimacy, because when you make up your mind that you're going to do it, and if you have to put it in your calendar, that's okay. But you have to make that decision and then commit to that decision and then act on it. Okay. All right. So for more tips, for more ideas, you can find me on Facebook. So Kim Kendall de Silva. I have a Facebook page. It's called The Language of Relationships. You can come hang out there. And while you're there, you'll find videos, you'll find PDF documents with actionable tips you can use on a daily basis. And you'll also get access to my Facebook group. So those are the best places to find me at the moment.
Okay, so Kim Da Silva in Facebook, Language of Relationships, a Facebook page. And if you want to reach out to me at Instagram, at Unicorn Mama Coach, or in Facebook, MomFit. And this is what I would challenge you to do. Hashtag Kim and then put, I shave my legs
I
at Linda Silva and Manfred, or I schedule my next sex date with my husband, or sex date schedule. Let's gonna take action on this. This is one of the most important things. Remember, losing a partner is one of the most excruciating, painful things in the world. So let's gonna make sure that we are doing what we want to make sure that we have the relationship that we are worth it of. Mama, you are worth it to have a beautiful family with beautiful children and also a loving, kind relationship with a partner that supports you, that love you, that is crazy about you. So that is my challenge for this weekend. I want to see a lot of hashtags for Kim and me telling us what you did this weekend. I schedule a date. I schedule sex time. I shave my legs. I put sexy lingerie. What you did this week. And so this show can also be heard in the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.